Nair. Episode 13 again. Because I recorded this once, but I don't like it. Crash and Burn Podcast, episode 13. We're going to be talking about what everybody's talking about. We even have to say it. No, it's not Chris Rock getting slapped. That was like 2 months ago. No, that was like, it's like 5 months ago. It's not that. It's not the UFOs. The UFOs were like last month. No, it's none of those things, guys. It's the sensation. The icon of the month. The icon of 2022. The icon of 2022, guys. Initials AT, Andrew Tate. Banned from social media. Let me tell you something. I don't know. I'm going to get into how I feel about his views because it's an interesting conversation, but we got to give it to the man. He's an incredible entertainer. Like you just got to first appreciate the entertainment value in the man. I honestly haven't been that entertained in a long time. There's a lot of very good speakers on YouTube. Like, I'm sure you've ever seen them. There's a lot of TED Talks. There's a lot of different people speaking. A lot of different personalities. Like, there's a ton of people trying to be interesting, and everything that man says goes viral, and it's fascinating. It's just fascinating. He's just a fascinating person. Like, I think that like we all, regardless of whether you like him or not, you have to appreciate him because he's so entertaining. I'm also like, yeah, it would be a problem if he was in like politics or something, but he's not a political leader. Like he's not a political leader. He doesn't have any real political power. It doesn't really matter what he says. Like honestly, like you think Joe Biden is listening to Andrew Tate's ideas? No. And also, if people want to accept his ideas, that's his whole other story. But more or less, his ideas have not caused World War III, and they're not causing anything terrible, for the most part. Like the world's still going on fine. So we can say he didn't invade the Ukraine like Russia did. Like he's not a terrible person, and he's not in jail, and he's not. And yet he could be in jail if he did something wrong, but he didn't do anything wrong. So, yet that has been proven. Like he's not like a criminal. Like he's not a criminal, like known criminal. You can't deny that. He's pretty successful. He's very entertaining, and he doesn't really say anything like that's gonna make the world like go off its like kilter or anything. So, yeah, incredible man. He doesn't say anything that makes the world go off the kilter or like start World War III. He's just trying to chill. So that's what I have to say first. So the next point is, I wanted to talk about that a little bit more. So, as someone who values entertainment and really likes movies and TV shows, and I've seen so many I really like horror movies and comedy movies, and I like stand-up comedy also. I've seen a lot of stand-up comedians like Jim Gaffigan, Jerry Seinfeld. I have a whole podcast where I talk about comedians. And he's funny. He's very very articulate, like very articulate, very expressive. He's a good speaker. Like honestly, I know why he's famous. Like it's not hard to tell. He's good looking. Like it's not hard to tell like why he's famous. And honestly, like you can learn a lot from him. Just like in terms of like being more like outgoing and being more like I'm a very shy person, and I always try to like watch people on TV, like Stephen Colbert. Like I was told by like an advisor a long time ago, like to watch Stephen Colbert because he was so good at like because he's a very shy person himself, Colbert, and it's interesting how he is able to like he kind of overdoes the expressions sometimes because he's like really trying to like overdo it on stage, and it teaches you a lot about how to like use facial expressions and stuff, um, especially in like comedy. Um, so yeah, um, so like when you think of Andrew Tate, he's not a politician. He's not like let's say what is he? He's a kickboxer. He's a Bugatti owner. Um, he's a playboy. He's a um, he's definitely a playboy. Um, he's a bald guy. Um, he's a power lifter. Probably lifts. Um, he's a steak enthusiast. Um, he is a brother. By the way, he has a sister that I know he doesn't really talk to. Someone was telling me about that the other day. I'm sure he doesn't have a good relationship with his sister. um, him and his brother have this like podcast where they just roast people who they think are beta males. So beta males are basically men who they think basically men who they think like don't have like some of the quality, most of the, they don't have like the level of prestige, and they don't have like the necessary traits to be a top G. That's what he called himself. He called himself a top G. And these beta males, which would like for example would be like a guy working at a gas station, or like a guy. He always talks about the guy working at Starbucks would be considered a beta male. And and he's like has this whole Hustlers University thing. Like, I don't know who's buying it. I never even like saw an ad for it, so I don't know like how people are getting exposed to it. Because like I see it in his description, like he doesn't really like talk about it that much. Um, like it's not like the way people talk about it who criticize him, they make it sound like on all his videos he's always talking about Hustlers University. Like no, he's really not. Like he's really not. He literally said in a video, Hustlers University is the same thing that like you get watching the free videos. He literally tells you that. So it's not really a scam. It just like people have Patreon pages on YouTube. Like it's just honestly a way for like people want to just give him money, and they it's a way for people to just give him money. That's honestly like people feel like they should give him money because they respect him and they feel like they're learning from him. It's honestly like what it is. They want to like have a connection with him because they think that they're really learning from him, so they want to put some financial responsibility on him. So that's one thing. Um, he's just so interesting. Like I don't think that people understand that he's an entertainer. Like, do people not understand this? Like, he's literally an entertainer, like Ben Affleck, or I don't know, any other famous movie star, like Leonardo DiCaprio, like Samuel L. Jackson, like Marilyn Monroe, like any freaking entertainer, like Amy Schumer, like any entertainer you could think of. That's literally what he is. He's no different in any way. He's an entertainer slash athlete. There are several of those. Shaquille O'Neal is one of them. There are so many. Peyton Manning tried to be. Eli Manning. Like there's so many. Derek Jeter tried to do that. Like Michael Jordan tried to do that. A lot of people tried to, like, like a lot of famous people. I think Mike Tyson is a perfect example. He is a fighter like Andrew Tate, and he's famous too, and he's an entertainer. Mike Tyson, like nobody cares really who he's voting for. If he talked about it, nobody would care. But for some reason, people care what Andrew Tate says, and I think it's because I don't know why. I don't know why, but people are intimidated by him. I think that for some reason, like people are intimidated by him, but I think he's just hilarious. Like he honestly like is one of the most least threatening people. I think there are so many more people like in the world like in power who are much more threatening than him. He literally like shows you where he lives and like the security he has around his house and everything. Like he's like honestly like kind of like very. I think he's actually a very sensitive person, and I think he's like actually much more sensitive than people think. Like I think people think that like oh people say like I don't know people say like he's gay, he's trying to hide it. But, like I don't think that's true. I think he's actually like a sensitive person. I think he's like deeply sensitive, and I think he's a great entertainer, and I think that he actually deals with a lot every day. Like I think that he's honestly just trying to like have a good time in life, and he's getting a lot of women, but he's not like if you really listen to what he says, he's not really like he's not saying anything. He's just saying everything's in terms of like is everything he says. So okay, so everybody's gonna say, "Oh, but he's misogynist." Yeah, he's a freaking misogynist. Yeah, he is. But he's entertaining. Like I don't know what you want. Like if you don't watch football because there are bad things about like a lot of people who play football or in sports. Like many people who play football like get violent because of the injuries that they get while they play football. Um, like yeah, he's misogynist. Okay, like you don't. For example, the abortion thing. Yeah, the Supreme Court said that this the states like abortion is not a requirement. Like the states could outlaw abortion. Does that mean that any law that the Supreme Court ever says ever is wrong, or any law that they've ever said should not be listened to? No. Like his view of misogyny does not affect anything. It really doesn't. Like his view of misogyny is the reason he's entertaining, and we should be in a society where we have to be mature enough to understand things like gender and all this other stuff and understand things like and have conversations with elementary schoolers about like changing genders and like gun violence and all this stuff where people have to be in diseases and pandemics. People have to be extremely mature. You don't think that they can understand that like misogyny is bad but he's entertaining? Like you don't think that like people could understand that? Like they really think that like he's gonna become famous and then we're just gonna go back to like women like being enslaved by men? No, that's not gonna happen. Like like I'm Jewish. There are literally so many countries that don't confirm the state of Israel or that want every Jew dead. It's just true. There's so many countries that hate the Jews. It's true. There are many political leaders in countries in the Middle East that hate the Jews. And um like what was I saying? Yeah, and as a human being, like I'm upset by that. But like when I know that like I know who is I know that like I don't even blame the people. Like it's hard to explain. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but like what I'm trying to say is like what I'm trying to say is that anytime someone says anything that's like against this sort of like rainbow cloud of um I think the best thing like that I saw is like I don't want to get into it, the transgender thing, but like it's like part of it, honestly. Like Matt Walsh's documentary, What is a Woman, was very simple, honestly. He literally went around and asked professors, what is a woman? Nothing more, nothing less, and he got yelled at and berated by it. Like that's that's not really like that's not the society I want to live in. Like I'm not proud to be living in that society. Um, and also some of the stuff that these people are saying who we are canceling is actually interesting to think about. Like a lot of times they're just saying, think about what got humanity to where they are now, and keep the stuff that is good and worked, and take away the stuff that hasn't worked. Like we can all agree that oppressing a group of people is bad, but like it's also important to understand that sometimes like men have certain skill sets that women don't. Like it's true, men are usually physically stronger than women, and like most men, like men in construction are probably more, like they probably get more done than like a woman in construction, like manual labor. It's just true. Like it's just true. Like that's why most men work more. A lot more men work when you drive by a road, people doing the roads and fixing potholes on the road. How many women have you ever seen doing that? Like in your lifetime? How many men have you seen do that in a lifetime? Hundreds upon hundreds, thousands. There are some jobs men do and some jobs women do, and that's just the reality. And a lot of the times that like people that are getting banned are just saying things that are true. Like some of the stuff that they say after that is false, but some of the basic claims that they're saying have been lost in our society to an extent that you can only make those claims if you are radical. Like I'm not radical, and I'm making a claim that's true, but people will see me as radical. Therefore, the only people that will make the claim are going to be radical people, because that's the only people who feel comfortable to be ostracized anyway. Like, if I'm going to be ostracized by saying a true statement, but I'm not radical, I'm not going to risk saying that true statement because I don't care enough about people who work on the roads to risk my reputation or risk getting banned from Twitter. Like, it's very, very, very scary, the world that we live in today. Um, so yeah. Um, and by the way, this whole like wokeness and stuff, no different than the political tirades of every dictator in history. The culture of slandering someone by wokeness is essentially the same thing as living in a society where they kill you for having an idea. Like there's honestly nothing different. Like since when did ideas equal actions? Like that's what I want to know. Like since when did having an idea equal the mass murder of six? Like since when did like having an idea and saying that a man could cheat on a woman equate to murdering 12 million people in gas chambers? Like it doesn't. Like what Hitler did was construct books, have an ideology. Like he propagandized so much, and he sent people to their deaths on trains in a systematic fashion for a purpose to have one race. And he killed 12 million people in gas chambers, and I think about it every day because I'm Jewish and it's part of my cultural trauma. And my grandma was born in Germany and escaped like right before the Holocaust, and it's crazy. I know a lot about it. I want to go to Germany one day. I know it's gonna be painful, but I really want to go. My grandmother was born in Munich in the 20s. So yeah. So yeah. Like I'm saying Hitler as a representation of kind of like the dictators that were thinking of like Stalin, Mao, stuff. People like that. We all know what I'm talking about. And yeah, what he like everybody's so scared of that happening again, and I am too. And you know this whole thing like we let something slide and then it's gonna be everything sliding. But it's not true. Like like they're like oh it's not far from saying that men. It's not far from like saying someone saying like literally just saying on YouTube their opinion that a man can cheat on a woman, which is not illegal in any form. Like infidelity is not illegal. Polygamy is illegal. Infidelity is not illegal. Um, and yeah, like um, so this is just crazy. I'm really getting into this right now, and I'm doing a pretty good job. I'm gonna be honest. It's gonna be a good podcast. So what was I saying? Andrew Tate, a product of our society, a product of evolution, and no, that's so general. It's not even true. Everybody's a product of evolution. Everybody has had ancestors upon ancestors upon ancestors upon fish upon elephants upon. We're descended from a single cell a long time ago. So yeah, we're all descended from that single cell a long time ago, guys. Hate to break it to you, but none of us are special, and we're all just the results of trying to survive. So yeah. So yeah, you and me and everyone else, just the people who are successful just happen to have the lucky characteristics to thrive in an environment that values those traits. That's basically all success is. In some worlds, being 500 pounds might be an advantage. Like there might be a world where in order to stay on the ground and not have gravity pull you up, you have to be over 400 pounds. Or people who are morbidly obese would thrive in that world, and they would reproduce. Like like you could think of any world. Like you could think of a world where like we let's say that we all had to live underwater. Like people with huge lungs and the ability to swim well would be favored, and we would all be jacked and we would all have really long legs and really long arms. We would all be like 8 feet tall and very good swimmers. But no, like that's not true. Like we don't live live like that, and probably we would evolve into something like fish at that point. Um, so yeah, um, that's one thing. Um, the second part of what I was saying was okay. Radicals do not define a movement. There are radicals in every party, in every situation, in every room. The radicals do not define the purpose of a movement. That's like that's the common mistake that people make when they attack a movement is they just talk about the radicals. If you just talk about the radicals and that's the only thing that you find wrong in the movement isn't that bad. I'm gonna be honest. Like let's take Nazism. The core purpose was to create an Aryan race, and there was superiority of their race over others. That in and of itself is a reason to say Nazism is terrible. And it's not just the extremes that thought that. So that whole term Nazism and fascism can be characterized as something that's terrible. But let's say like we take another thing like so I gave you an example of something that is verifiably terrible based on that definition, which it should be. So that's a positive control. So now we take something like so that was a positive control. Now we take something like um, I don't know like Andrew Tate's idea that cheating on your wife while being married is okay for men, but not for women. Now, the radicalists, and that would be people who want the oppression of women and think that women are the objects of men. But the more actual view that he's saying is that is that there's a is that women are inherently more emotional than men, and that men aren't as attached to people that they have sex with, which isn't the same as saying that a race is superior to another race. It's not on that level. Like, it's very different. It's like let's take someone else, like Bill Cosby, who I don't even know what he did, but he did terrible stuff. Like, he sexually assaulted people and stuff. That in and of itself is terrible. Touching and forcing people to do things without their consent or coercion is terrible. That's another positive control. Okay, so now we establish positive controls. like like a lot of people, like, to invalidate an experience that I think a lot of people know is true is something that isn't, like, good. Personally, I don't think that men should cheat on women, or that women should cheat on men. But I know, because I know that I get personally attached to people that I have sex with, regardless of the gender. So that wouldn't work for me. But, like, if to him, men, but, like, if his view of men is that, then, like, it makes sense. But, like, so then like, if his presumptions are right, then what he said is true. But, like, his presumptions are not evil in an innately. He's not trying to be evil. Like, these aren't evil based assumptions in a way that you're saying a race is superior than another race, or that something like that. These are just, like, kind of assumptions in the way that people interact with each other, and I think that's really what's different. Um, like, it really is true. Like it's the same conversation when they were talking about having an NBA and a WNBA. It's the same conversation. It really is. It's nothing that's trying to be. Um, they're not trying to harm anyone. They're just trying to create a world in which everyone can be comfortable. That's really all there is. Um, yeah. So, um, I think it's more important to look at the nature of which someone's trying to say. Like, he's not saying that women should be sex slaves. He's not saying that, like, women should be, like like he's saying that, like, women and men have a different life experience. And if he believes that, then, like, I don't think that's a malice thing to believe. It's not out of malice and hate and, like, trying to hurt people. It's out of, like, honestly, he's trying to construct, like, a more positive world for people to live in. Um, and there are times in which I think he's gone too far with his misogyny, for sure. And I disagree with a lot of his, like, conclusions. I think that some of his, like, reasonings are okay, but then his conclusions are always a little bit far fetched. Like, it's always, like, saying that, like the generalizations he makes, I don't think are smart of him. I think he should be framing these in terms of his own experiences. I don't think that this whole misogynistic, like, top G, men are superior, men are providers, men need to do this. Like, I don't think that, like women, like he says, women can't drive. Like, that's not something that's okay to say. I'm sorry. Like he would honestly be doing, and that's part of the entertainment part, which people don't understand. Like, it's really just that's part of the that's part of the views, because people are so triggered by these words. Like, but um, that's, like, a little excessive, and I don't really support that part. And I know he's a smart man, but maybe he's not too smart. I don't know if he's smart. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not sure how smart he is. I actually don't think he's that smart. I think he's just entertaining. Um, and I think he's very, very, very dedicated and tenacious when he wants to do something. Um, and I think he's intimidating too. Um, So yeah. Um, yeah. Um, it's a very interesting topic to talk about. Um, it really is. Um, like he's he's gone too far, I would say, but he's gone too far. Like I think that like okay, so the this is kind of the way that people are talking about him, as if everything he says is going to become law tomorrow. Like that's the problem that I kind of have with it, because I you can't agree with what he says. Nobody agrees with what he says. Like nobody thinks he's smart. Nobody thinks he's like this. Nobody fucking likes him. Nobody likes him. Nobody agrees with what he says. Even like people who are around him don't agree with what he says. Nobody agrees with what he says. So that's not the problem. The problem is this: the media thinks that everything he says is going to become gospel and reality, and everybody's going to believe it the second it comes out on on YouTube. Thus, he can't say anything because so people listen to him, but that doesn't mean people hear him. That doesn't mean they listen to him, and it's kind of insulting to us that we have to ban that. That's really what I'm trying to say here. They're basically saying society is not intellectual enough to understand that they can think for themselves without because they can't even hear things that aren't what they believe, which I think is actually contradictory to what is true, because hearing things that you don't agree with actually strengthens things that you do believe in, and actually creates arguments for when people try to defend things they don't believe in. You already have arguments to attack them back. So it's actually kind of bad for women to get him off of YouTube or to get him off of Instagram and Facebook. I'm gonna be honest. It's actually a bad decision for um, people who are against misogynism, because what he says is clearly ridiculous, and it's clearly, looking at it 2 years from now, going to be an example of how ridiculous misogyny is. That's just the end point, like, done. Like, you can't debate that. Like, everything he says is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it's such a good example of what's wrong with like men who think that women should be treated that way, but like I don't appreciate that when you become famous, that everything you say people don't have the right to interpret anymore. Like, when you become famous now, you have to say, you can't joke around anymore. Like, you can't do anything anymore. That's what it's. So then only people who become famous are going to be extremely boring at this point, because anybody who becomes famous is going to be banned from being famous because of the reason they became famous. So you heard it here first. You heard it here first, guys. Ready to have Joe Biden's running comedy club soon, because there's no comedy left in the world, and there's no um, dialogue, and nobody believes in anybody's intelligence anymore. So we have self-driving cars, we have doing this, self do that. Nobody has to do anything anymore. Nobody believes in anyone anymore, and nobody has any faith in anyone anymore. And nobody's funny to anyone anymore, because we don't even give people the power to be funny. So when you wonder why people aren't laughing, and why people don't have role models, and why people don't have passions and talk about current events, it's because it's so fucking boring, because of the regulations that we put on everything. Yeah. So that's it.